Right, my talk is called How to Create Better Processes with the thing that I invented, Process Decision Record. So, a few words about me. I've been doing different IT stuff for almost 21 years now. I've been doing development in JavaScript, PHP, C Sharp, even Delphi in Pascal. So I've been doing it for 13 years. Then I became engineering manager or a team lead. I started mentoring other managers, and now I work as a developer advocate at a company called Qase, and we do a jolly good TMS system. So, what I'm talking now about is that I think that most of the processes in most companies are bad. I've witnessed so many bad processes during my consultancy that you can't even imagine. And the reasons why I think the processes are bad are these. First, the processes are inherited. What I mean by that is that whenever you, as an engineering manager, come to a team or join a company, or you get promoted from a developer, you have processes that were established before you started this position. And in most cases that I've seen, you're not even entitled to change them. So you just have to stick with what you have. And also, in most companies I've consulted, processes were static, meaning that the processes were once set as if they were set in stone and nothing was to be changed about them. And the worst thing is that most of the processes' activities are not rational. And by rational, I mean anything we're doing in a company should be rationalized. We should understand why we're doing a certain thing. Maybe we shouldn't do it at all. If you've heard about a word called cargo cult, then you might recognize this picture. This is a Melanesian tribe of people who built this mock of a plane because they thought that if they build this mock of a plane, they will get as much food they used to get when the US Army was throwing food from their airplanes. It's absolutely the same approach that managers use when they copy processes of other companies. They think that if they copy a process activity from, let's say, Google, and they think and they know that Google is a very successful company, that process activity, they think, will make their team and their company as successful as Google is. This is completely irrational. This is a cognitive bias, and this is why it's called cargo cult. So, why is this all problematic? I've described how it looks like, but why is it problematic? First of all, I want to say that it's low. I mean, these processes are low in efficiency. But the truth is that we don't even know how efficient these processes are. If they are introduced ages ago with no rationalization, they just copied from someone else. We don't even know how efficient they are, what problem they are solving. We just we are just used to them. So how can we solve this whole set of problems? It turns out it's quite easy. Well, at the surface, we need to rationalize the process activities we have. We need to understand what problems they are about to solve, they need to solve. We need to understand what cost each process activity has. We need to see if there are other alternatives to solving this problem. Then we need to change the process activities when needed reactively. For example, when COVID started, many companies had to get rid of the office work. They had to move people remote. And so most of the process activities needed to change at that time. This is reactive change. We react to the changes in the world or in the market. Sometimes we need to change processes proactively. Let's say we are about to hire another team in our company. It seems that the processes we're having now might not work as effectively when we introduce more people to our company. So we need to change the processes proactively to ensure the efficiency of the new people. And I introduced this concept of a PDR, a process decision record card. If you've been into architecture, you might have heard of architecture decision record, a simple concept where every single change to an architecture of your software is recorded as a card where you have the reason for the change, the cost of the change, the context of the change, etc. So I suggest you think about adding a concept like that to your processes rationalization. So you describe any process activity you have using this simple template. You might add more fields if you wish, but I'm suggesting to start with just this. So the first one is start date, when the process activity is started. Then the cost. Every single process activity has a cost associated with this. Let's say we do a code review of a feature. This process activity, code review, costs the company. You have time the developers spend on this process activity. You have negative side effects, which might be added to the cost as well. Then you have problem being solved. So why do we think we need this process activity? Once again, if we are talking about code review, what problem we're trying to solve with this process activity? Then the very important one, risks and negative side effects. I suggest you add them separately from cost, because cost is just direct expenses, but risks and negative side effects, they might occur and they might not occur. So for example, if we have, let's say, 7 stages interview as a process, the cost is obvious. We just have, let's say, 14 hours of time of our interviewers, but the risks and negative side effects are different. It might be the case that many people will just stop the interview process due to its extensiveness. So I suggest you write down them separately. Then there is review date. As I've said before, sometimes we rationalize the process reactively. We change the process reactively. Sometimes we are about to run a new experiment. And if we run a new experiment, we need to know when to review the results of this experiment. Or even if we're talking about an old activity, maybe something in our world changes within the next, I'm not sure, 3 months. And maybe in 3 months, we don't even need this activity anymore. And to think about the rationality of this activity during the review stage, we need some criteria. And I suggest you list them here in the record as well. So enough theory, let's go see how this works. How I suggest you approach PDR. First of all, you need to understand your process flow. Every single process you have, from hiring to software development to deployment to whatever, every single process consists of sub processes, internal process activities. And each activity, I think, should have its own PDR. It's okay to start from the very top, let's say just hiring. And then we can go deeper into the very peculiar process activities when we have time. And what's important here, that when our review date for each PDR card comes, we review this process activity based on what I've just said, review criteria. Let's start. Let's say we start with hiring. This example I have here is a very simple visualization of hiring processes that I've witnessed in one company. They had hiring from the market and internship. So essentially, they accumulated people both from the market and they taught newbies and junior developers. They just gathered them from the market and taught and interviewed, etc. So that company had 2 sources of people. So let's write a hiring from the market PDR. So once again, you're seeing the process, the overall process. Let's write the PDR for the overall process first. Let's say that our company started functioning on the 1st of January 2020. And on the 1st of February, it started hiring from the market. As I've said, any process activity has associated cost, the direct expenses you have to run this process activity. If you interviewed anyone in your life, you might know that hiring costs a fortune. In that company, I saw that hiring a person, sourcing it and sourcing him or her, interviewing them, etc., costed around $12,000 per person to hire a good developer. Then we have another direct expense of salary. So in this case, it was $100,000 per person per year. That was a price for a seasoned developer. The problem we're trying to solve with the whole hiring activity is quite obvious. We have low team capacity. We're seeing that our existing team of three founders, who are full stack developers as well, they can't cope with the load. They need to work faster. So that's the problem stated. Risks and negative side effects. What risks can hiring bring? Well, first of all, it can bring manager overload negative effect. So whenever you have a team of, let's say, 8 people and you add another 3, your manager, your engineering manager, might easily get overloaded and lose control of the team and lose track of the development of people and development of the software. Another negative side effect, that team cost, the budget is rising significantly. As I've said in the cost thing, in the cost criteria, 100K per person, and more you have, more budget you spend on it. Then there is another negative side effect. Coordination costs are getting higher. There is a great scientist, his name was Amdahl, his surname was Amdahl. He stated Amdahl's law, the law that explains the limit of increase of performance when you add more parallel computational units. This law is actually the core law used by CPU designers and motherboard designers and computer designers. Those engineers, they know where it's important to add more cores, or where it's important to add more powerful cores, but less cores, but more powerful. So imagine a team of, let's say, 20 junior developers. Imagine the coordination costs there. Then there is another negative side effect correlated with this one. Team performance might even decrease with adding more people. There is another scientist, his surname was Brooks, and he said that if you add more people to a late project, the project will be delayed even more. The rationale behind this law is that the coordination costs will increase, and so the overall performance of the team will decrease. This law is actually a special case for the Amdahl's law. So let's add review date for the PDR, for the hiring from the market. If we aim at getting our processes as effective as possible, we need to review the effectiveness of this process often. And I suggest we review the hiring from the market process each month. And the criteria are simple. Team capacity. Maybe it's already pretty much enough for us in terms of capacity. Maybe we could improve processes better now. So if we come to this review date, and if we see that maybe it's going to be better to optimize the processes, especially knowing the cost of adding every new developer to the team, seeing the budget and seeing the coordination costs rising. So here we are adding our current understanding of criteria that we need to rationalize and think about when reviewing this card. So next month, we might replace this hiring from the market with something else. Maybe we could replace it as an experiment with hiring from the network, or maybe we could stop hiring and improve the processes, or maybe something else, or maybe we could teach people to become more performant, or maybe we could teach people to solve problems better. So, or maybe we could even optimize the upstream. Maybe we could start doing less features, but features which are more essential and required for our users. Who knows? We need to think of many other options. We're not bound to just solving this hiring problem here. And if we have more time, so let's say we are an engineering manager, and on Friday after doing all the demos and everything, we have more time. We could then go into specific peculiar parts of the hiring from the market process. Maybe we don't need to get rid of the hiring from the market process just yet. Maybe we can optimize the sourcing procedure. As I've said, maybe we are just hiring from the job sites while we might have hired from the network. So let's write a PDR for hiring from job sites. As we said, we started hiring on the 1st of Feb. The cost, well, it's pretty basic, it's pretty low. Our recruitment cost is only $300 per person to source the matching experience and matching skill set from the job site. And we also pay the job site annual subscription fee, which is minor as well. The problem being solved here is basic, is obvious. We need people to get to the interview stage, so we need to source some people. And there are also risks and negative side effects here, if you think about it. If you are experienced at interviewing people, you know that sourcing people from job sites usually yields very low conversion. Just because, like in this case, I've seen this company where the interviewer had to do 16 interviews to find just one matching person. So 6% conversion. And interviewers get really, really tired from that. So as I see that interviewers are getting more and more tired, they spend more and more time on actually doing that, on actually interviewing people with such a low conversion. I set the review date for each Monday. And the review criteria here are very simple. If I see the conversion is as low as it is now, maybe we could switch from using hiring from the job sites to hiring from the network. Or maybe we could train our recruiters better to find better matching people. Or maybe we could introduce phone screening with our recruiters. Who knows? We need to think about it. And the second review criteria here is interviewer state. So if I see that this particular interviewer is on the edge of actually leaving the company because they are so fed up with interviewing people with such low conversion, they are losing the will to leave, essentially. Maybe I need to stop doing that or switch the reviewer, essentially to adopt the process to what we're having now, to our current context. Let's switch to our product development. There's better examples there as well. I've seen a company, they were doing analysis stage. So whenever the product manager came up with a user story, that company had analysis stage before they actually picked that story for development. So I decided to write a PDR for that. Start date, 1st of Jan, cost of the analysis stage, 2 work days per story. So whenever system analyst took this story from a product manager, that system analyst had to spend 2 work days on a story. But why did they have this analysis stage? They were trying to solve a problem. And they call this problem that every third story brought by this product manager was incomplete. Essentially, it was not, I mean, no one could properly understand the limits and the scope of that story. So the product manager essentially brought stories of bad quality. And as you might know, as Schultz and Deming said, that you cannot inspect quality into the system. You must build the system with the quality in it. But anyway, these guys, they were trying to solve the bad quality problem from the product managers with analysis stage. It's like a defect tracking system. So risks and negative side effects that we've witnessed in that company. First of all, this stage, whenever a system analyst found there were issues or the story was incomplete, and this system analyst brought the story back to the product manager, delay with this story was up to 12 days, just simply because the product manager had other things to do before they managed to switch back to that returned story. And there was no positive dynamics. The product managers were not even improving the quality of those stories. So I set the review date 6 months ahead. I've tried persuading product managers to learn a bit, to see these issues here, and to learn a bit how to create proper stories for the development team. So the review criteria were simple. If we see in 6 months that the analysis stage shows and just it's obvious that the story's quality is getting better, then there might be no reason to keep this analysis stage whatsoever. We can just uh, proceed with no analysis. Then there is another famous one. I've been talking about code reviews for quite a while already. I even have an article on Hacker Noon about the rationality of code review. So Fab, we started doing code review. The cost was quite low, 3 hours of developer time per task. The problem that we thought the code review was about to tackle was that 6% of tasks were returned to development by quality control. So whenever developers put the tasks to QA, well, I call it QC because it's just a control of quality, not assurance. But anyway, as soon as developers put tasks to QA returned 6% of tasks to development. And that problem was the reason why development team considered having another stage, code review stage, before moving tasks to QA. Risks and negative side effects, as we saw with you there. First, bad social dynamics. What it means, we human beings tend to around pretty much any criteria. If we are grouped in developers team, and QA team, and if we negotiate our labor, our work results with ourselves, and that's our innate feature, whenever something we feel it's our kid, it's our toy, it's our something, it's something that is tightly bound. And whenever someone criticizes it, we tend to dislike that person a little bit, I would say. There are plenty of articles in the internet on how to make sure code review doesn't toggle these negative social dynamics. But if there are so many articles on that particular topic, maybe, just maybe, the code review is just the reason why there are so many issues around personal, even attacks, I would say, in this particular process activity. Then there is another negative side. Review quality decreases with time. As soon as developer is really tired of doing code reviews, if that developer is doing, I'm not sure, 5 code reviews per day or 3 code reviews per day, chances are they will look not in such a detail into the task, but just skip major stuff. And another problem is that's the worst problem with code review, is that every code review might, not every, but average code review delays the task for 2 days, for up to 2 days. Whenever a defect is found, whenever an issue is found, that task is brought back to development. The developer that was working on that task under code review, they need to finish their current work first and then complete the issues and fix the issues found during the code review. So if you consider the flow, the development flow, code review is quite expensive. And once again, I'm comparing the problem that is being solved with risks and negative side effects plus costs that we pay for using this particular process activity. And in every 6 months, I want to review if the percentage of tasks returned by quality control, if run an experiment, let's say, get rid of code review and see what happens. Maybe the amount of tasks returned by quality control to development is not going to be 6%. Maybe it's going to be less. Or maybe, just maybe, we could replace code review with pair programming if we just compare these two cards, code review and pair programming, consider and compare their costs, negative side effects, risks and negative side effects, everything. If we compare them, maybe it will turn out that pair programming is going to be cheaper for us and better for the team. But once again, why I'm saying that I think we need to list all the criteria and all the risks and negative side effects on a card. As soon as we put down something on a card, it's much easier for us to do comparison. If you've ever bought a car and if you did this comparison of criteria, it is much easier to rationalize the choice. Sound is breaking. Wow, sorry. Joyce, you're saying you can still hear and see me. All right, I hope everything is okay. So I've talked about writing down and putting down the activities in this PDR card format. So what happens when the time for review comes? First, as I've shown here, we review criteria. We review the criteria. Maybe we found out that the criteria we were considering are different now. Maybe we find out that we can get rid of this process, as I've said, with code review or with analysis or with hiring from the market or with anything else. Maybe even let's say with one-on-one activity. Maybe the team is assembled so well now that the manager doesn't need to talk to individuals anymore. Maybe just communal meetings of the team meetings are enough now to make sure the team works well. Or maybe we can replace the particular process activity with a better alternative, as I've mentioned in the code review. Maybe pair programming will be better. So the positive effects of the PDRs for me are the following. First of all, with this very simple concept, it's really simple. We just draw the flow, the process flow. For each process activity, the big one, the overview one, we write down a PDR. Whenever we, as a manager, have time, we go deeper into each particular activity and write the inner flow. And we rationalize, we write a PDR for each activity there. And we review everything. So it's very simple. And it's spread across the time. It's spread over the time of our work. So we motivate ourselves to do, as I say, good things, to rationalize our processes, to review them, to get rid of processes which are stale and not needed anymore. The main thing here, I think, is that we move slowly, but keep moving forever. So we won't ever stop. The world keeps changing all the time. If we need to sustain our team, if we need our processes to work effectively, we need to at least react and adopt to the ever-changing world. And if we are smarter, maybe we can predict something, and maybe we can do something proactively, run an experiment, let's say. What's important here as well is that we review everything. We engineering managers are not bound to just software development process. We, I think, need to at least think about other processes that influence our software development, influence our teams. If hiring influences our team, I think we need to at least understand what's going on there, why we have a certain number of phases during the interview, why we hire people for certain salaries, why we do this and why we do that. And as we have better understanding of what we do, we can provide better transparency inside our team and inside our company. There is this great thesis that more transparency yields better results. Why so? Because if a person understands why certain thing is demanded of them, then they are not pushing back that much. If I understand I am demanded of a certain process ritual, then maybe I'm not going to be postponing it, and maybe I'm not going to be missing this ritual. If I really see the rationality behind this, if I see the value of this meeting, of this process activity, as I've mentioned with code review or with pair programming, I've seen plenty of cases where such a great concept, pair programming, failed in the team while being introduced, just because the manager said you must do it now. They never explained why. They never explained the benefits for the members of the team. They just said you're just going to be doing it. And enforcing software development processes or any other processes is just Hitlerian style and doesn't work well with intellectual labor. What's more important here is also that as you have better transparency inside, you can use this as a advantage even on the outside. You've all seen GitLab, I think. They have this concept that they write down pretty much everything in terms of how they work, in terms of their culture, their processes, etc. And they put it on GitLab so everyone can see why certain things work in certain ways in GitLab. And this is a good advantage, competitive advantage, at least in terms of hiring. Because if you know, I mean, if I, as an outside person, just see what the company is about, and if I like what they're doing, I will want to go and work for them. So it's a competitive advantage, the transparency. And the main thing is that if we motivate ourselves to rationalize and to review the processes, we never stop learning. We just force ourselves essentially to review what's going on, force to map what we have in processes to the real world, which has already changed. So we need to learn more. And what's even better is that if we come to a review stage in half a year and we're going to review a certain process, it might be the case that we've read a few books during this time and we've understand something better. And we've noticed that we lacked some criteria when we put this PDR card. Maybe we notice something worse is going on in our process or something better. So it's like a good way to motivate ourselves to never stop learning. So I think it's a good concept. And I'm done. Thank you, folks. There are my contacts, my GitHub repo where I put managerial articles, and my email and YouTube. Thank you. If you have questions, please do join the discussion. Darren, do you know how to invite people to the discussion? Darren. Thank you, folks. I believe that's in the chat. Mizal, thank you. If anyone wants to chat or if anyone has questions, thank you, Andrei. If anyone has questions, let me know. I'll let you in. Question: how do you know how often you should review a process? Oh, that's very interesting. I would say that reviewing the process, any process, is a strategic activity. And there is also tactical activities, like different engineering managers have different duties. But most often, you don't have the whole week for your strategic actions, right? You just have, I'm not sure, a few hours a week for things which are of strategic value. So I would say that I would start with reviewing the worst processes most often. If I'm running an experiment, let's say, of removing code review in favor of pair programming, I would think that it would be a good idea to review what's going on every week. To sit with the folks in my team and to review how it's going on. If I am just reviewing a process which is working fine, I would set a review date to 3-4 months, just to make sure I'm not missing something. Another question from Chiran: do you communicate this entire process to all employees in the company? How do you make sure they have a similar understanding? Certainly, of course, I communicate this entire process to everyone in the company, which makes it easier for me to explain why I need to look into a certain process, why I need certain statistics, why I need certain data. If I, the manager, just come to a developer and say, hey mate, let me know please how many tasks you've done how many tasks you reviewed, chances are the developer will think, this engineering manager is digging something on me. Why the hell is he asking this stuff? So if I explain the value of things I'm doing, then employees will understand why I need certain data, and maybe they will be more tolerant to experiments and changes that I'm about to run if I'm about to change some process. And how I ensure they have a similar understanding. Oh, it's very interesting. I'm trying to encourage process type changes hypotheses brought by developers. So whenever some developer, any developer or any employee brings a hypothesis that he says, let's say, Vitaly, we found out that um, in our CI/CD, auto tests are working in a bad way, and it toggles and it yields such a delay in our CI/CD. Maybe there is a better way to handle these problems. So whenever I'm showing the employees that their ideas and experiments are valuable, they will understand better what I'm doing as well. And if anyone comes with this rational proposal for change, RFC or whatever, I will say thank you to this person, and this person will also make sure that other not make sure they also will influence others because they will be grateful for what's going on. Next question: do you have any recommendations, further readings, resources on PDRs? I will prepare a few articles and I will link them to the recording as soon as the recording is on the events page. So there will be a few articles within the next couple of weeks. I'm finishing them off. Mocha Maker. Yeah, higher the risk impact, the more frequent. Yes, of course. Yeah, thank you. Any more questions? All right, seems that everything is covered. I think I've noticed that there was a question if the slides will be. Thank you, Claire. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Uh, I've seen a question if the slides would be linked to the event. Yes, I will upload the slides. So yeah, everything will be there. Thank you, Joyce. So nice. Thank you. Thank you, Vivi. Blimey, that's so cool. Cheeton, how does this work in a large company? I have not have an experience like that in large company. I think it might work with a very strong will of someone on the top. I seriously doubt that it will be possible to propose a transparency level like that from the EM position or developer position. Of course, you can start doing this PDR for the processes you have in your team. But once again, I've seen so many companies where the processes were imposed on engineering managers and teams by CTOs or someone on the top, CIO, CTO, or even the owners of the company. It's like the most famous case is Scrum. Many companies say, we have Scrum, and if you come to a company, you will follow Scrum rituals, whatever happens. And regardless how hard you try to rationalize why you need certain ritual or why you not need it anymore, you won't be let to change it. There are cases like that, unfortunately, and many of them. So if you are an engineering manager who doesn't have enough power to change something, maybe you could just run this PDR thing and prepare this PDR process for the cards for yourself to understand your processes better. Question: what about open source company or startups? I think it's the best one. This is what GitLab is doing. Essentially, GitLab is just they don't use the concept of PDR. They don't use the cards that I'm proposing, because I think that the cards just offer you a better structuring level of thinking about the processes. But GitLab is just writing down pretty much everything they're doing. All the processes they have, I've read about them on their GitLab site. So it's working in many companies. Now, bigger companies sometimes tend to write a lot about their teams. Yeah, thank you, Salah. They write a lot about their teams, the culture about the team in their teams, etc. So companies start to understand that transparency and rationalization, explaining essentially why certain things work certain ways, is important for both inside for their employees and for the outside for the new joiners, potential new joiners. So in startups, it's very easy to start thing like that, especially if you are a CTO or engineering manager, maybe even a developer, because I've seen many influential developers in startups.